There is.
Can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, cool. And it's the right screen. It's got the agenda.
Yes, it's the right screen.
Okay, good.
Quick question.
Okay, welcome everybody. It's only a very small group today, which
Yes.
we've only got like 6 people. Nice. All right. So first item of agenda, we have our minutes from last time. If everyone has had a look at those, does I have a mover to approve?
Yep, so moved.
I will second.
Thank you, Stephen. Fabulous. I don't think we need to vote, do we? Do we have anybody abstaining? Maybe just put your hand up if you want to abstain. Nope. Okay. So
5. Yeah.
5.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Okay. All right. Number 2, updates. Right.
Sign-ups. Yes. So just to report on where we landed for our ballots that are running now. Ballots managed to open yesterday, so that was good. For each group, we had sign-ups to the total of we had 72 individuals sign up for AU Base. So that's those 72 people representing 17 organisations and a number of individual members. So that's not bad for AU Base. AU Core each and AU e-requesting each had 77 sign-ups for each of those ballots. Again, some nice organisational participation too. We've got 19 organisations represented for AU Core and 18 for e-requesting. So that's a pretty solid turnout there for the sign-ups. So and the ballots are now actually open. So I might just show you. Might just get you to click on a link, Jane. Hang on. Okay. So yeah, I'll just drop that link in the chat there. So yeah, at the top of the ballots here. So there's the 3 top items on that list. There are the 3 ballot entries. So we've got our e-requesting, AU Core and AU Base entries, and under that you'll see there's the ballot list of all the balloters. So that's all ready to rock, and so we're planning to have a introductory session on Friday, which will be like sent out to all the participants that have signed up, and that'll be again just the mechanics of voting and things around balloting. So we expect that to happen this Friday. So there'll be an email. There was an email I think sent out previously, but we'll send a reminder out soon. So that's pretty much the status on that. So those have just opened. They're open through to the 12th of September. So we'll be obviously getting some feedback through that period, and we have some things to look at as co-chairs, the co-chairs. But we'll be proceeding along for this ballot cycle. So all in all, it's good that we've got the ballot open, and we've got the 3 things all published and ready to rock. That's about all to say, really.
We need to give an update, I guess, on the work group meeting day.
Work group meeting, yeah.
Yeah, so we've got now allocated room, and we've also got dial-in details. Those are on the agenda for the work group meeting, and I sent round an invite to everybody through, you know, the lists so that they would have that there. And I'll get Alette to also forward that to the people who've signed up for the work group meeting day who aren't, I guess, maybe a member of any of the work groups. One of the things that's worth noting, so the FHIR Work Group is at the end of the day. We are in room 4.29, and so that will give us around 19 people, I think. So we can fit 19 people in. Potentially e-requesting will also be running at the same time, and they're in a bigger room. It's also so at the end of that, at the end of the work group meeting, at 4:30, drinks will sort of start at 5 o'clock, I think. So there'll be some drinks that'll come around, and then there's an annual. So the AGM for HL7 Australia will be happening at 5 o'clock. I think it's 5 o'clock. Brett, Ruben, is that right?
Yeah, I believe I think that's right, Ruben.
Yeah.
I think we're taking drinks into our AGM.
I'll confirm in a minute. I think it is right.
Yeah, and you take the drinks in, and then I think I got told by Alette that after everyone comes out, there's still like then further drinks. So there's a little bit of a free drinks and socialization there, and also the opportunity to attend the annual general meeting for HL7 Australia.
So that's on the 20th or not on the 21st, the AGM?
21st.
Oh, whoops, no, I got that wrong. Sorry.
Yeah, that's what I
It's on
thought.
the Connectathon day. Ignore me then.
Yeah, that's the
It
next
closes
day.
at 4:30. Go away at that point.
You can still get drinks, but we won't be paying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're there, likely we'll like head somewhere together or something, or find a place after.
I can also add that the AGM starts at 5:30 p.m. on Wednesday.
It's 5:30. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm reliably told that the drinks will be out at 5. Cool.
Okay, so all we have for updates.
I think
Yes.
so.
Okay, cool. All right, so item number 3, international time zone raised by international. We have an hour. Who's running this?
I can talk to that one.
Yep, do you want me to click on this
Actually,
link, or?
can we start with the JIRA ticket first?
Sure.
That would be good. This was raised previously in GitHub, but it's by Lloyd Mackenzie from International. Just that noting that there is an international extension for Timezone available, and recommending that we use that instead of our local version of that. And I think so I think we have now the time zone extension is really just the ability to add a time zone to a date time, I believe, or a time, and so it was added into our specs to mainly support very much mainly to support healthcare service opening hours, which were noted that there was no way to actually specify a time zone for the open hours on a healthcare service entry. So that is something I think so I think the time zone extension, it has been used in various places. I'm glad Chandon's here. So so there were a few notable places time zones got used in the real world. PCA, the agency project, uses it as part of their definitions. It's definitely part of provider directory content as well. the NHSD, National Health Services Directory, also uses it. So there is some prior use of this extension, this Australian extension. So I think we might go back to the having a look at the spec. So there was a branch done just showing this stuff. So if we look at now, so this is actually the branch where the international spec has been looked at, and there's a profile that's been developed to essentially we had this the original extension is really covering Australian time zones, so really looking at being able to represent Australian time zones explicitly. So actually it might be easier, Jane, if I take over and I'll navigate around. Let me just get up the same thing. Sorry.
Where are you, Brett? Sounds like there's a lot of background noise.
That's my dog.
Oh, okay.
Are you able to see the meeting minutes?
Yep.
Cool.
Yes.
Excellent. So let me trawl through here. So in our definitions, so just to look at the original extension, we had this AU local time zone extension. So this is so this was one we developed. So it's basically just the ability to add a time zone code to state times, instance, and time. I'm not sure why I made that in there, but you might ask those questions. So and really there's a value set there that's restricted just to Australian relevant time zones. So there's Australian territories and Australian time zones. Whilst that was used in healthcare service, there is the ability. There is the ability to use the international time zone extension to do the same job, and effectively, one way to do that to really make that time zone extension to be the same same sort of operation as the local extension that we had operating is adding a profile to that international extension. So basically there's a similar local. Oh no, this is where we were before. I didn't show you the old one. So this is in fact the international time zone extension. So it's and this is a profile on it. So using Australian time zones. So what I did show you before was the wrong thing. I should show you the original. Yeah, so this was the original one. I actually showed you the wrong thing. They're so similar, I didn't know the difference. So so really we had it just on as used on a time, which was mainly to support that healthcare service availability time usage. But similarly we still have this value set, which is the Australian territories and time zones. So we are still retaining the use of that value set, but then you can use the international time zone and put a profile on it to say restrict it just to Australian time zones, and effectively the values doing the same thing, in terms of being able to add an Australian time zone to the content. So to consider anything around changing this, it's notable that the URL that would be defining that extension is obviously different, because this is an Australian extension. So we've got our own URL that defines that extension, and when the international time zone extension would be used, we would use the international URL to denote that. So it would be a breaking change for people to swap over to using the international time zone. However, I think it would be probably the correct decision in the sense that we should be using the international extensions where they're available. So I think so as far as the agenda goes, it's really just the consequences of this if we were to decide to essentially replace the recommendation of that time zone usage to use the international time zone, and what to do with the existing extension that we have published, and whether there's a deprecation pathway that should be applied around that. So there's probably two questions there. So should we move to the international time zone, which I would very much support, and or if we do, how do we deal with the previous version in a sensible way in terms of deprecating it for people that are using it now, and giving some indication that that has some intent of not being the best option at the moment.
So I think that I will probably frame it in a bit sort of differently. The question is that do we have significant use of the Australian extension? And if we have, then we have sort of a bigger hurdle in terms of deprecating the Australian extension. So I probably would like to entertain a discussion as to whether or not there are extensive usage of the Australian time zone extension, and therefore gauging the impact of deprecating it before we entertain the discussions or the options of moving towards the international extensions with an Australian profile.
I think Chandon and Paul are good candidates to open this up.
So after the last meeting, I had a task to do an internal inquiry within the agency as to the impact. So one of our colleagues, I'm reading verbatim the responses that looking at the JIRA ticket, it makes sense to me, and we don't have a problem with this proposal from a PCA perspective, and would align with it when it is implemented. So the task that I've been asked to do is to make an inquiry from the PCA perspectives whether or not that switch would have any impact. So it appears that we are okay. I mean, from the response that I got from the PCA perspectives, it's okay with the JIRA ticket.
That's good.
Yeah, I think from our point of view, it seems like a fairly natural change. No big concerns.
Are there going to be any changes in the value sets there, or all that?
Yeah.
I think
Brett, you were saying that we'd continue to use the same time zone definitions. Yeah.
The values would remain the same. So
Yeah.
but obviously it would be a breaking change on the wire because you'd have a different URL used to indicate it was a time zone. That would be the only difference, I believe. Let's just check, because that's a code. And
So it's a different code set, but the same values.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, it is the same code.
One second,
they
actually,
have the
once-
same code system and everything. It's just
Yeah.
that we've had a value
Yeah.
set that was specific. You would keep the same
Mhm.
one.
Yep.
Yeah, actually, the Australian extension is a codable concept, not a code. So it is different in structure as well. Yeah. So they are in fact not equivalent.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at. The value sets.
Yeah.
Provided.
Yeah, so the other I think that I would like to raise for consideration is that given that today we don't have a sort of a broader participation in the core, so I know that colleagues like Andy Bourne and Angus Millers, etc., who are implementing FHIR implementation that might use the time zone extension, not at its core. So I think we can discuss about the implications. And given that I've heard from Paul and the agency sort of response that there isn't any, but I would think that we probably should hold it over until we have the other colleagues in here at the meeting to gauge the impact. And I see that Ruben's hand is up.
Yeah.
So what I would say is that if what we're talking about is deprecating the Australian extension, then the only impact would be on new FHIR specifications. What deprecation means is that it shouldn't be used in new specs, but it can continue to be used in production systems. So we're not, I don't think, proposing that we retire that extension, in which case we would have problems. I don't see any significant risks in adopting the international extension and deprecating the old one. It doesn't have any impacts on existing implementations or existing publications, but we are moving in the direction we want to go in.
I hear what you say, Ruben, but I still think that it would be prudent to have colleagues like Andy and Angus, etc., on the call.
Could I suggest, because there's a question there on are they implementing that extension? So we could just contact them and email them. We don't necessarily need them on the call. If they are implementing it, then yes, we should have them on there. But if they're not, then we don't need them in the particular call to do that. One of the reasons I'm suggesting that is there's a possibility that the e-requesting TDG will be run at the same time as the next FHIR Work Group.
Yeah.
And so if we hold this over to the next meeting, I think we just want to clarify whether or not we actually need them in the room.
Yeah, and I guess if we don't make a decision, I will be raising a ballot against this if it doesn't get done anyway. It's the main use the only use I know of is around directories because it's really mainly for that healthcare service availability time, which is where it's recommended for use. That I'm aware of people using it, but I believe it is used, right? And so I believe that there's definitely systems that have implemented like multiple systems. NHSD, I think, has and other directories. So.
So Brett, if there's the new international, so there will be a new AUPD published, IG published with that, and the old one.
That's a different question. I think the PD question is I mean, at the moment the PD spec says what it says, and until there's a new version of that, that will continue to be saying the same thing. So so I think that's a problem. That's a problem. That's a question for the PD publication itself in terms of what it is. But like Ruben said, I think what we're doing is really just saying the preferred extension would be to use the international extension from our side. and we would keep the definition of the original AU time zone and probably add some advice around that into the content as part of the change, and obviously mark it as a deprecated extension, just to indicate that there's potential that when people stop using it, we would maybe retire it entirely. Yeah, Daniel.
Yeah, a further comment on that. I think, from my perspective and my understanding of how we need to be supporting with FHIR and internationalization and not redefining extensions that already exist in international, we need to go down this pathway anyway. Like it has to happen. And I do think it's good to understand the extent of the impact and the guidance that needs to be defined. But there's no option really for us to just continue on and not eventually deprecate this one and move to the international extension, because that is part of the FHIR standard.
Yeah, I think that's true in terms of our the premise that we would try and align with international where able. Plus, we also have some useful tools like extension profiling now, which are well supported in publishing as well, which we didn't necessarily have at the time when we invented that time zone extension as well. So we have a good tool to make it operate in a very similar manner to the original one. So yeah,
there's essentially no risk. We're just going to be continuing to use the AU time zone in current implementations, and then new publications will come out using the international one. So I'm not sure, Brett, like what?
Yeah, it would really come down to PD, like, because PD would, like, and I think this is work that needs to happen in PD about whether that is a must support extension in the definition of what PD is, right? So, and so at the moment we would just be going in AU base. We think that we recommend this one rather than the original one. But I think we'd need a downstream spec to pick up the conformance requirements around it, and but I think that would make sense to do that. But obviously that would probably come with other changes anyway, so maybe it's not such a bad time to do it.
Time is right.
I think too it's also probably in the sense that you'd want to try and look at conformance for this. It would also feed into maybe AU Core R2 work as healthcare service comes into that scope, perhaps. So that would be something that would need to get considered around that as well. So it would be whether that would be something AU Core does use or not, and
I can definitely see that
as well.
As we're starting to build out our e-referral profiles to our e-referral IG, those health services will be in there, I guess, Brett, so we probably need to tackle it then as well.
Yeah. Cool.
So, Brett, are we going to entertain a motion now, or we leave it to the ballot comments?
Well,
what would the motion be?
Well, I think we do have to consider two motions. One is to deprecate the AU extension. The other one is to adopt the international one with an Australian profile. So we do have two. I think we can deal with them one by one, but the two goes together.
Yeah. So I think I would like to motion that we deprecate the Australian local time zone extension as it is replaceable.
Okay, do I have a seconder?
And can I just clarify, that deprecation is something that you'd want to put in the current release of AU base, noting, of course, that that's out for ballot now.
Yeah, and that's the reason why
Yeah.
I asked earlier
Yeah.
whether or not we want
Actually,
to leave
yeah,
it
that's-
to leave
yeah,
it
let me
to
take
the
that.
better comments.
Let me retract that. Yeah, that's good. I will ballot against this specifically, and then we can probably work through that as a reconciliation item and work it into the.
Yeah, so if we're going down the
something,
balloting path, we don't have to have a motion today
No.
on either one of them.
No, that's good, and I think
Yeah.
I think too the only broader discussion, which is probably not specific to this topic, is the deprecation pathway for artifacts, and just that we expect that we expect that if we do deprecate artifacts, we will still publish them until the work group decides that they should be retired. So there's no sort of set rules, I guess, around that. So it would be, I think, based on the work group activity, whether we did retire an artifact in the future.
We do kind of have some kind of pathway in the sense that all the standards are up for review after 2 years or 5 years. I can't remember exactly the time frame.
Yeah.
And when it's up for review, then we can then decide to retire it. We do have a pathway.
I'm not. I mean, on that, because I mean, we review AU base. I don't because it doesn't end up going through that one because we always have ballots before that. So I think because it's an active standard, it doesn't necessarily go through that one. Or are you thinking, Stephen, that we need to every 2 years review all the artifacts inside it?
If we, we do. Internationally, there is a practice that I think I can't remember. Don't quote me about the number of years, either 2 years or 3 or 5 years. I can't remember exactly. That you have to review the standard and to determine whether or not you re-endorse the standards or you decide to make changes or you need to deprecate it. So that's the standard process.
And I was thinking in relation to this one, I was more thinking, I guess maybe where we have deprecated artifacts, like I don't think we actually have any artifacts yet. We've got a couple of deprecated codes and we should consider that as well, that where we have deprecated things, maybe before we go to ballot, like we do FMM reviews, we should just have a formal acknowledgement that these are still intended to be part of deprecation and we don't want to remove them.
Sure. Like if you look at International FHIR R6, there are a number of extensions that have been deprecated. They still remain on that, and those deprecated extensions will be visited or revisited by the work groups that owns them, and they will have to decide sort of whether or not the deprecation stands for a while or they will be retired at a certain point in time.
Yeah, I think that's what we would do too. Cool. I think that all sounds fair. Was there anything else?
Yeah, so I think that we'll leave that ticket or the extension in for now, and then we'll deal with it sort of as part of the ballot comments. So I think that's sort of making it cleaner.
Yeah, I think that's a cleaner way to do it. Yeah, excellent. Well, I think that's probably good for that item.
Yep.
Thanks for that. Just to get a handle on it.
Okay, great. So that's brings us to item number 4, which is our next meeting, and we kind of already had a quick chat about that. Is there anything else?
Yeah, we should go to that page so to go through the agenda.
Yeah.
Which one?
Scroll down. Yeah.
Yeah, the next one, which is 2024-08-20, that one.
Yep. On that page, see FHIR Work Group meeting, click on agenda.
Yep.
And
3:15 slot there.
This one?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yep. Okay.
So yeah, there's a few governance items here, which are kind of probably high-level discussions, but obviously we'll be able to take advice on anything that needs to or is desired to be added to the agenda there. But you'll see it's all very governance logistics oriented. So, yeah. So just to go through this.
I just have one
charter.
request, Brett. For item number 3, can you put a link to the charter and DMP so that we can navigate it during the meeting?
Yeah, I'll note that. Yeah, so basically so our charter, our decision-making practices, so that'll be a discussion around that. Ballot reconciliation, as we'll be getting into that soon with our ballot running. Status on the PD project and maybe some discussion around that in terms of where that is at, at that time.
Yeah, I have pinged,
discussed before.
Ping Jacob, and he is going to present or to come to the meeting and talk about it. Yeah,
and I think we have an existing PSS with a scope of work in it, so we probably need to talk about that and whether that will be addressed.
That will be addressed as part of the discussion that Jacob is coming to.
Yeah, that's good. So hopefully we can. That's a very operational question. Yes, coming back to the FHIR maturity model discussion that we did kick off some time ago now for around renaming and maybe adjusting some of the content there. So that's a good opportunity, I think, for us to work through that to try and settle that down. And some discussion around co-chair terms and re-election. We do have terms as co-chairs of the work group, so some of us are up for positions to end. So that needs to be addressed towards the end of the year. Just to go through the process around that, and and maybe offer that if other co-chairs want to come into the mix, that might be a good opportunity. And that's about all of that. We've had a couple of things there noting we're planning to cancel the 28th of August meeting, which is the meeting after the face-to-face meeting, the week after the face-to-face meeting. So just in the, since we are, planning to have that face-to-face meeting next week now, we will expect to cancel the FHIR Work Group the following week, just because everyone's done their time already. You'll note too that there is a specific special link to join the meeting, which is a Teams link on that page. That's also on the agenda page for the HL7 meeting. So that's a specific one for our hybrid call. So that will hook up the room with the any online attendees. So if you know anyone that's also planning to attend online, that's available, but it is a different link than the normal one, so they need to join on that. That's all the things to note, really. So yes, co-chairs do welcome any other kind of things that we think would be useful for the face-to-face kind of scenario.
I think we do have a lot to talk about during that quarter, so I'm not sure that we have time for to squeeze in any more.
Yeah, true. There's a lot of things there for 90 minutes.
Yeah, I'll leave any of the stuff that's coming from the Sparked program and updates maybe to the next FHIR work group meeting. This is an important set of agenda, so we'll go through all of these. And then, if we happen to have some free time lying around, then I might bring some stuff up. But otherwise, this is the important stuff.
Yeah, I think this will be a pretty packed quarter, so we'll have to hopefully work through reasonably quickly. But I think these are some good things to talk while we're face to face as well, because it's very much about the business that we're doing rather than specifics. So yeah, it should be a good chance to do that. Cool. I think that's about it.
All right, it looks like that we
Okay.
have a short meeting today.
We
Yeah.
have. It's good. Okay.
I've got one
Okay.
remaining point, Jane, if I may.
Yeah, sure, Ruben. You just got in.
Thank you. Well, I kept this to the end because it's not strictly speaking Australian business, but I'm sure of interest to many of you. The ballots for HL7 International are currently open for registration, I think only for the next 24 hours. There's some interesting things on ballot in this current cycle, notably a ballot for comment for FHIR 6, the new version of the extensions pack, and the next version of the International Patient Summary, among many others. I just wanted to flag if anyone is interested in providing feedback or ballot comments on through HL7 Australia, to please reach out to Brett or myself, and we can assist you in doing so. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because with ballots sign-ups closed, don't they, soon, Ruben? Like in the next 24 hours?
They close on August 15th US time.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yes, time. So we
probably
got a couple of days. Yeah.
two days.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you really want to comment on something specific, make sure one of us is signed up to that. It's a good plan.
Yeah. I'm signed up to all the ones I noted, but yeah, if there's anything else, let me know.
Yeah.
Is international patient access going out to ballot?
I don't know. I don't think I saw that
Not
one.
that I can recall.
No, not that I can recall either.
Cool.
Yeah.
That would be the only other one that I would think would be immediately pertinent. But if it's not, then yep, that's good.
Yeah.
Well, let me have a
What
quick
I'll-
look. If you are seeking for that answer, I have signed up for the ballot. I can't recall that I saw it, but I will double check to be sure.
Appreciate that, Stephen.
Okay, I'll share that link. I will see, and we'll have a look while you. So Ardens Index, CDA.
None of us who aren't.
Oh, okay,
can't
right. My apology
access
if you don't. I'll have a quick scan and then I will let you know.
Yeah.
SEO.
Oh, here you go. Okay.
No, I don't think so. Okay,
It's
sorry.
not there.
I don't think that there is IPS. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think.
No, not that I
Yeah.
can see. Yeah.
Okay. Is it worth, Ruben, Brett, the ones that you have signed up for, is it worth maybe popping or sending an email to the group just with the links, and just if anyone has any feedback on any of those, to let you know?
Yeah,
I mean, they should just raise
send a
them
whole list.
in Jira and then send Brett and Ruben the links to the issues they raise, basically.
That would be ideal. Yeah.
Oh, hang on. I lie. I beg your pardon, because I actually signed up for that. So there is IPS sort of like for ballot.
Yeah.
So let me share my screen.
IPS is there, but not IPA.
No, not IPA, but IPS is there.
Yeah, IPS.
Gotcha.
Yeah. There's probably a number of things that might be of interest depending.
So I omitted that I have actually signed up for it. So this on my sort of a list, and the list underneath that didn't include IPS. But yeah, indeed there is IPS.
Nice. Oh, this must be us, reserved for affiliate ballot.
Just for us.
Must be, yeah, just for us. No coincidence that it's only 3.
That's only 3. Yeah, cool.
Okay.
Yes, it might be worth setting
I was
up
going to
this list.
suggest,
Yeah.
Jane, to your request, what we could do is Brett and I will just sign up for everything just to make it easy, and we'll put
That's
a
good.
copy of the list of things into the minutes for this meeting, and anyone can contact us if they've got an interest or specific comments.
Yep, sounds good.
But does everyone have access to the content though if they're not signing up for the ballot?
No, it would have to go through the authorized members of HL7 Australia who can lodge comments. So the board makes provision for one of us to always have that access.
No, I
send
understand that.
comments.
What I'm saying is that does anyone else have access to the content to review to provide any one of us with comments?
I believe most of these things are
Should be
generated with the
public,
IG publisher and are open access now. So yeah, we can provide the links to those things if they need them.
Yeah, I think all the FHIR IGs are public. I know. Yeah.
Yeah. So I haven't signed up for everything, so I only have links to the 3 that I've signed up for.
Yeah, that's another
Oh, yeah.
reason Brett and I should sign up to all of them.
Yeah, that's a good point.
All right.
And what's the time
Sounds
frame around those if you put that in the minutes as well?
The time frame, I think most of these open for ballot feedback and voting from the 16th of August USA time to the 16th of September. So there's about a month there for anyone to send us something.
Yeah, if we've signed up, people just
They
usually
they usually close about a week before the work group meeting.
Will you be at the work group meeting, Stephen?
No, I am not funded to the work group
Okay.
meeting, so unfortunately I won't be there.
Okay.
Okay,
Nice.
great. If there's nothing else, we can close out the meeting.
Excellent.
All right.
Alrighty.
Thanks, Jane. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.